So guys, in this session, we are going to see how do we onboard logs from our universal forwarders. We'll see for the both the instances for the Linux and Windows, and then we'll see how we configure indexes, and then we are going to see those logs on the search heads. Okay, so now this in this our architecture. So we know that right, we have two separate instances for universal forwarder, right? One is Linux and one is Windows. So for the Windows, we are going to onboard our when event logs, right? So if we click on event where, right, we see this Windows logs, right? So we are going to onboard the security logs for all this. Okay, so we are going to onboard all the security logs for our universal forwarder. And coming to our Linux instances, so we have a path called var log slash audit, and we have a file called audit.log. So we are going to use this particular file to observe all the audit events for the Linux. So we'll see how we can onboard these two logs for these two particular instances, and we are going to see those logs in the search it, right? So this is our data onboarding task that we are going to do right now. Okay, so basically this is divided into actually two steps. First, we need to configure the monitoring on the Linux and Windows, and then we have to configure indexes. Okay, so now for configuring the monitoring on this universal forwarders, so what I'm going to do, again going to use the previous concept like which we are using in the deployment server, right? We were pushing apps. So same way I'm going to create apps for two different instances, right? And I'm going to push those apps to the respective universal forwarders, right? After doing that, we are going to configure some indexes. Okay, so now in order to do that, to input any logs, so there is very important file known as inputs.conf. Guys, you might have encountered this previously as well, where we were seeing like how to enable receive with the help of inputs.conf file. But the inputs.conf file serves a major and vast purposes, right? So this is the inputs.conf file, right, guys? So we there are various types of inputs types, like we have monitor, batch, TCP, SSL, UDP, then HTTP, then Windows event logs monitoring, then various others. You can go over here and you can see this, right? So in this lesson, basically, we are going to see two important things, which is monitor, right? So monitor, like as the word is only self-explanatory, right? Monitor is used to monitor a specific path, right? So we need to monitor a path, right? So if there is a change in that file, it is going to Splunk is going to monitor it, and it is going to push that changes into the server, and we are going to see the respective logs as well, right? And now coming to the Windows logs, so there is already specific on like scripts already created in Splunk that is going to help us in order to achieve the log onboarding. Okay, so in this particular thing, I am going to use the Windows event logs monitor, right? So you can come in this document. So as per your purpose, you can use this. So right, we have a specific stanza called Win event log, right? Just we need to give this, and our logs onboarding will start for this as well. So I have already picked up few important configuration that is needed to us, right? So now, in order to onboard the Linux audits log, we need to first create an inputs.conf file, right? Now we need to mention the path. Like what is the path where this log is present, right? So we already know, right? This is present in var log audit and audit.log. So we need to do that. And I have given disabled is equal to 0 and index is equal to Linux logs, right? So we are going to onboard this particular logs in a specific different index known as linux.logs, and the configuration for this we are going to see that now. Okay, and the source type is equal to audit. So in this particular things, this particular logs will be getting onboarded. Now coming to the Windows one, so we are going to use this already pre-built script, that is win event log. So just we need to mention the name here and what specifically we are going to onboard, right? So I don't only want to onboard the security logs. Now if I show you in the Windows event log monitoring, right? So we are in the Windows event log monitor. So there are various types of Windows log monitoring, like security, system, application. So you can give your as per your needs. So I am only picking up the only the security parameter, as I only need the security logs. Okay, so what we are, so for our first things will be, we are now coming back to our deployment server configurations, right? So we were creating some apps in this particular location, deployment apps, and then we were creating a server class.conf, right? So if the server class.conf file is already present, you need to just update your configurations there as well. So what, for this particular tutorial, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create this app as usual, but the server class.conf file, I'm going to do it from the console, okay, from the UI basically. So now once that is done, now the next thing is very important thing, which is this indexes.conf, right? So this particular indexes.conf file is generally present in the indexes, because the indexes are going to store those logs. So indexes are nothing but just the databases, right? So we need to create this particular app. So you might have remembered when I was taking the indexer clustering session, I was telling you, right, configuration bundle session is pending. I'm going to tell you in the data onboarding. So this is the session where I'm going to discuss that. So basically, so all these configurations that we push to the indexes, right, we call it as configuration bundles. Okay, so the path where it will be present, right, it is present under opt splunk etc master apps. Okay, and folder, we need to create a folder and respective configuration file. So the configuration inside that we are going to discuss now. Once that is done, we need to apply the changes. In order to apply the changes, we need to just type this particular command, splunk apply cluster bundle, and if the status is successful or not, we can check by entering this particular command. So now how do we know that this particular configuration is successful? We can log into any one of the indexes and we can go to this particular paths in order to see whether our configuration was successful or not. Okay. Now coming to the configurations, right? So how do we configure an index? So before configuring an index, there is a very important concept that we need to understand, that is buckets. So buckets are very important things. Okay, so for before talking about buckets, before proceeding with the buckets, I want you guys to understand four different paths first. Okay, we call it as home path, cold path, frozen path, and third path. Okay, so home path consists of hot and warm buckets, cold path consists of just cold buckets, frozen path consists of just only single frozen bucket, and third path means third bucket. Okay, so now whenever the data first rolls into the indexes, right, it will first go to into the hot bucket. Okay, so hot and warm buckets, it will, once the hot buckets fills up, it goes to the warm bucket. So one warm bucket also fills up, it goes to the cold, then frozen, then like the cycle goes like that. Okay, so but there are few conditions in order to roll the data. Okay, so the data can only roll if the hot bucket is full, otherwise there is a time span has met, right? So these are the two conditions in order to roll the data. So if the hot bucket is full, then it is going to transfer the data. Otherwise, suppose if the hot bucket is allowed to transfer the data after 2 days, then it will transfer the data only after 2 days. Okay, so these are the two things, like like in order to transfer the data, right? So now, so hot and warm bucket data generally store the data, recent data, okay, so that they are very quickly searchable. And the cold buckets are like they are the data will be searchable very slow, because these are some cheaper storage. Maybe the home part buckets will be data, generally SSDs, and cold parts we need to can be HDD drives, right? So once all both the time spans are over, like home path and cold path both are over, the data moves back into the frozen bucket. So frozen bucket is like a archiving bucket. Okay, so so in the archive bucket, like it is ordered to store the very old data, right, in a very compressed format that only Splunk can understand. So now coming to the third bucket, in if you want any data from the frozen bucket to be built, that needs to be put into the third bucket, and this is a manual process now. Okay, so if there is a requirement, right, you need to build up a data like very old, that is only present in the frozen bucket, so you need to manually copy that bucket into third bucket and do some changes in order to rebuild that data. Okay, so this is all about buckets. So now coming to the configuration, I'll come back to this configuration later, but we'll discuss few important parameters before going to the buckets. Okay, the configuration. So this is a sample example I have taken. So I'm considering for an example win event log. Okay, so the first important, these are the few important configurations. Okay, so home path dot max data size MB. So this means that what is the combined size of this hot and warm buckets. Okay, so that means the home path dot max data size. So this particular field should be given in MBs. Okay, so max data size, so max data size means What is the size of one bucket in a hot buckets? Okay, so there are multiple buckets present even in a hot buckets. Okay, so maybe three, four. Okay, it can be, yeah, as per the numbers you give. Okay, so what is the size of that particular one bucket? We can define using max data size. So if max data size is given as auto high volume, that means that the one size of one bucket is 10 GB. Okay, now max hot buckets. Max hot buckets means how many hot buckets are allowed here. Okay, so here the configuration is three. You can give it according to your needs. Now replication factor auto, like where should how many indexes the data should be migrated to. Okay, now coming to the home path. The home path means so where the data is stored. So the location of this particular path. Okay, so similarly cold path. So cold path means the location of this particular path. So basically what in corporate environment people do, right, they put it into a different share in order to store the data. So the basically that share will be very cheap to afford, right? So third bucket and cold freezer, third part you guys already understand, right? Third part is this particular one. Now there is a path called cold to frozen dire. Okay, so let me explain you one more concept here. So suppose there are there are conditions, right? So what happens, like many companies think that if a data if a lifespan maybe after 6 months, okay, a data has stayed in till cold bucket till 6 months. So after 6 months, if a company thinks that I don't need that data longer, so it can delete it. So now if a company has a policy like it needs to keep that data, so you just need to mention this particular configuration, cold to frozen direct. So that means that if you put this particular path, it means that it is going to store that data. If you don't give this, then that data will be automatically getting deleted. So that's what cold to frozen dire is. Okay. So you can even give more cheaper storage here, right? So now max hot spans per second. So how much time it can stay in the hot buckets. So basically the home path. Okay, how much time it can stay there. Now frozen time period in seconds. So how much time it can stay in this cold path. Okay. Now T starts home path means so where is the so basically these are some index path where the data should be stored. So these are some important configurations, right? So again there is a configuration file called indexes.conf. You can go over here. The most important which is needed I have mentioned in this particular tutorial. So rest you can go here and see which all is needed as per your need. Okay, but coming to our tutorial now, so we are going to use only these four things: cold path, home path, third path, and max total data size MB. Okay, so how much data, so that we are going to do. Okay, so now everything being explained, so now let's begin our configurations. Okay, so what I will do first thing, what I am going to do is I am going to start from by configuring the indexes. Okay, so in order to configure the indexes, what we have to do, we have to first log in into the cluster master. Okay, so let me quickly see my cluster master IP address. That is here, right? 244. Okay, I am already there in my custom master. So what I need to do, I need to go to ctopt Splunk etc master apps. Let me just confirm once again. Yeah, master apps. Okay, that being done. Now I need to create one directory here. Okay, maybe let me check whether if there is any contents. Okay, that is the default contents. Let it be there. mkdir, maybe Linux underscore index. I'm going to create one more directory, Windows underscore index. Done. So now I'm going to go inside the Linux index. Okay, I'm going to create one more directory here known as local. Okay, now I'm going to go inside the local and I'm going to create a file called indexes.conf. Guys, make sure your spellings are correct. Okay, so because Splunk, everything is very sensitive here, case sensitive here. Just copy paste the Linux configuration to this particular path. Okay, that being done, move out of it, save this thing. Okay, now I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to move to Windows. Okay, So I'm going to create one more directory here, local. Now if I go inside the local, okay, now I'm going to create one more file here known as indexes.conf. Okay, that being done, now I'm going to copy paste this particular configurations. Fine. Now once done, just save this particular configuration files and done. So once your configurations are done, you need to go back to the Splunk bin. Now you need to apply the changes, right? So what I'm going to do, back to my configuration files, and we need to run this particular command. You need to provide your Splunk credentials, admin credentials basically. Okay, now that is done. Now let's see what is the status of our cluster bundle. Right, if you see success, 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 that means everything is deployed successfully. So how do how do I know that it is deployed successfully? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to exit out of this particular. Now I'm going to log into any one of the indexes, guys. Okay, now I'm going to become root here. Going to go to cd opt splunk etc. Now if you see here, we are going to see the changes inside the slave apps or master apps. So search for any one of the things. So I see here peer apps. So I will go inside the peer apps. Right? If you see here, my Linux index and Windows index is there, right? So it has been pushed by our. So now that is being done, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to now do this configurations in the basically the data onboarding configurations in the deployment server. So moving ahead to our deployment server now. So as we all know, we need to create first apps, right? So let me quickly log in again back to my deployment server, which is .244. So now what we have to do, we have to go to cd opt splunk etc, then deployment apps, right? So I'm going to create here two directories. One is Windows monitoring and one is Linux. So now I'm going to go inside the Linux monitoring and create one more folder here known as local. Okay, now I'm going to create here a configuration file called inputs.conf. Right, I'm going to copy paste this particular configuration. Now moving back to my Windows monitoring folder now. Now I'm going to create here one more directory here, local, and I'm going to create a file called inputs.conf. Okay, and I'm going to copy paste this particular configuration. So that being done now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to I'm going to my opt splunk bin. I can just reload my deployment server. Splunk reload deploy server. So that is being done. So let's go back to our browser. And if I do a quick refresh on the forwarder management, right? You see, right, four apps are created, right? So these apps are created. So now what we have to do here is we need to go to server classes. So I'm going to do it from the console now, right? So I'm just going to create here new server class. So again, I'm going to create two classes, right? So one class is Windows underscore monitoring class, right? I'm going to copy this and save this, right? So I'm going back again. So I'm creating one more class now. Going to create a one more class. So which is now going to be Linux monitoring class. Okay, so let me move to my Linux monitoring class plus. First, what I will do, I'm going to add the app, right? So just click on add apps, right? So we have to select this particular Linux monitoring. So this is added. Just click on save, right? So that being done now. Now I need to push it to one of the clients, right? So I'm going to push to the client, which is my universal forwarder. Just click on this universal forwarder and check the IP address. So this is the 78 IP address, right? So I am going to use this particular IP address. Just copy this and paste it. That's enough. Okay. And click on save. Okay. That being done now. So let me go back to my forwarder management and go to my clients. You will see these two apps are deployed now, right? So now the same thing I'm going to do for my same this machine as well. So let's quickly do that. Going to my server classes. Now I am going to my Windows monitoring class. I'm going to click on add apps, right? So I'm going to select this particular app and this is done, right? Now I need to add clients, right? Just click on add clients. Just select this with a space or the IP address. Anything is fine. Click on and save. Okay, done. So let's get back to my forwarder management. If I go to my three clients, I'll see now two apps are deployed to this particular things. Okay, so how do we know that two apps are deployed? So I will going to confirm in my Windows machine first. I'm going to Windows, sorry, I'm going to my C drive, then go to program files, then going to Splunk Universal Forwarder, then going to etc, then I'm going to go to apps. Now you see here Windows monitoring app is there, right? Local and same inputs.conf file which we have created that time, right? Right, so everything is configured now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log into any one of the search heads and see whether I'm able to see the logs in that particular index or not. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So index equal to, let us check with the Linux underscore. uh, we need to type the name correct. Let me do that. Okay, so let's wait for some time. We'll be able to see the logs quickly. Okay, let us check for the Windows logs as well if we are able to see anything. Okay, so both logs have not come up. So we'll wait for some time. So guys, our logs are up now. If you see index equal to windows underscore logs, so I'm able to see all the windows logs now. So I'm able to see that particular logs in my search head dot 87. So if you remember from my console, so search head 1 is dot 87. So I'm able to see the logs in that particular host. And if I go to my index equal to, let me show you the host. So this is the host from where I'm getting the logs. Now if I go to my index equal to linux underscore logs. So even I'm able to see that logs as well. It's so this, if you remember, dot 78 is the IP address of my universal forwarder. So this is the IP address from where I'm getting receiving the logs. Okay, guys. So we have successfully configured the data onboarding. So where we started from the universal forwarders and we configured the indexes. So guys, before closing the session, there is one more thing I wanted to address actually. So so when you deploy the apps, right, in that particular uh, machine, basically the Windows and Linux, like in your deployment server, when you create the apps through the command line. So when you create that app, so you will see this particular after installation, you will see that only it will be by default enable app, right? So restart Splunk D won't be there. So that's why the I was not able to see the logs in the starting, so that I missed. So I have done the changes as well. So once you start, before configuring the server classes, what you need to do is just click on the edit and click on edit here, and this box will be basically unchecked. This box will be basically unchecked. Okay, so just you need to click on restart Splunk D. So this process needs to be done. Let me get back. So this process needs to be done before creating of the server classes. Okay. So once you are able to see your apps, right, Linux monitoring and Windows monitoring on your console, you are able to see those apps after you create in your basically on your machines. So you just need to do is like just edit and enable the restart Splunk D, so that because there are these configurations when they are deployed, there a restart is needed for the Splunk service. Otherwise, these kind of configurations won't start working, right? So this was all I wanted to say, and now everything is done. Thanks.